I'm Jessie. I'm 49.
I'm Sharon. I'm 53.
My name is Sonia. I am 36 years old.
Hi, I'm Britta. I'm 44.
Welcome back to Interwoven's 5th season, featuring conversations in celebration and support for women in middle life. This season, we are thrilled to share support with Mother Lion. More than just a place to stay, Mother Lion is a whole sensory experience. Located in the heart of the Bayview neighborhood in Milwaukee, Mother Lion awaits you with open arms. In today's episode, Interwoven co-founder Rebecca talks with board member and nutritionist Maria Viall. They discuss Maria's personal journey into the world of nutrition and supporting others through navigating the sometimes confusing world of dietary health, where we can get lost in the details, and discovering our way to our best health. With this project, we are creating space for women to share their stories. It is not meant to diagnose or treat a medical condition. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding your health and well-being. Thank you to Gina Barrington for providing the interwoven music. Remember to hit subscribe so you can be the first to know about new episodes, and visit our website to join the Interwoven community, receive newsletters and event information, access all of our resources, and to connect with us on social. Find us at interwoven.com. That's interwovxn.com.
Maria, it is so good to see your face. I'm so excited to talk to you in Denver. And I'm missing you here in Milwaukee, but so excited for you guys and your move. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So I think we can start off chatting about our origins, because while you are on today as our advisory board member and nutrition expert, you are also my very dear friend. And I'm so grateful for our relationship. Yeah, I was trying to think. So we know that I think we're introduced by our mutual friend, Amber.
Yeah.
How long ago was that now?
Well, it was I would say probably at least 7 years. Oh, I would say almost like 10.
Yeah, I would say 10.
I think
And
we
then
met after I met my husband, my now husband. Yes.
Yes. And I feel like we got a little bit closer, like right after you got married. I remember kind of hanging out and hearing about your wedding, and then your pregnancy with Avi, and your sort of then spending time together when the kiddos were little, because they're like a year apart, right? Just about a year.
Yeah, we were kind of pregnant around the same time for a little bit.
Yeah. And then also just having you as an amazing referral source for my patients who were coming for acupuncture and feeling as though they needed a little bit more support in the nutrition realm. And so I feel like we've kind of had this really beautiful friendship and relationship, but also been able to be an ear both for each other professionally, but then also a great kind of resource for our clients, patients, etc.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a great meeting of the minds as far as professionally, and then the friendship that blossomed from it. Definitely an added bonus.
So tell us a little bit about how you got into doing what you are doing. I think we also met kind of when you had just finished up some of your training. It's been exciting to see your career blossom too, and the directions that you have gone, both with work and also I think every conversation we ever have about nutrition to me is always super exciting, because that world is so confusing, because there is so much out there telling you every which way to go with what to eat and what not to eat. And I've always really loved your approach. So tell us a little bit more about how you got started there.
Yeah, it was something I actually went back, which I think a lot of people went back to school for after graduating college, and more so from I spent a few years overseas playing basketball professionally, and just kind of exposures to different cultures, and really kind of blew my mind a little bit. You know, I was in my mid-20s and kind of have always dabbled in diets at some point, and also being an athlete. And so there was already a lot of confusion in my mind about what you should eat or what's healthy. And, diet food, was definitely part of my daily intake. And when I went abroad, just seeing people eating, I guess, quote unquote, normal food and being like healthy and vibrant and, didn't appear to be on any sort of diet. And it just was really fascinating to me. And it just kind of prompted my interest in this whole mindset around food as fuel and nutrition. And so I just kind of dove in studying on my own, and then really wanted to go back to school for it. So attended school in British Columbia, in Vancouver, and studied there, and then did a internship at an integrative cancer clinic, working with patients. And then when I came back, I had already kind of been seeing people kind of like in the health coach space, just kind of helping people, but focused a little bit more than when I returned on like more specific, like kind of more health issues. I worked alongside integrative doctor at a cancer clinic back in Wisconsin, worked alongside a couple other physicians as far as referrals. So I would say my initial interest was trying to understand and figure out the confusion around food. And I would still say after 12 years, I'm still trying to figure out the confusion around food, because there's just so much out there. And I think with just our society and social media and all that, I think it can be overwhelming even for somebody who has studied this for many years. So
Yes, for sure. I know you and I talk about that a lot. There, as a component of my acupuncture training and my master's degree, there is sort of a piece of nutrition, kind of more in the Chinese medicine kind of scope of things. But it is so confusing because even, we were talking even, let's say, about perimenopause, right? How like you can see one thing that it's like, no, for perimenopause and for blood sugar management, you need to do intermittent fasting. You need to do keto. And then literally like the next post you see is for hormone balance and perimenopause, you need to eat within an hour of waking in the morning. And so,
yeah,
yeah. You need to eat like complex carbs and sweet potatoes, and you need to eat before bed. It's like all of these things that you're like, I mean, I don't even know which way is up. And I am a healthcare provider and feel like I'm relatively have an idea of things, but even for myself personally. And so what I've always loved too about you, and I definitely want to hear your take on that piece, but is also just how you, I feel like, approach nutrition and approach people in sort of more of kind of an intuitive eating and listening to your body, because I find it confusing.
yeah, and it is. And I hate to say that I think some of that's intentional, because I mean, if everybody's swapping and buying this and changing, and you're perpetually like, coffee's good, coffee's bad, coffee's antioxidant, coffee is draining your adrenals, just for as an example.
Mhm.
It keeps the conversation going, and everyone knows that, essentially drives a market. And I think the wellness industry has done an amazing job in so many ways of bringing awareness to this concept of just wellness, right? Like preventative care, movement, meditation, diet, alternative therapies. And I think that's beautiful. I also think that with that has come, unfortunately, a space that has made almost like it could become so confusing that it can cause people to either not do it or even obsessively do it or have guilt around things. It's like, where did we come from when there's an argument on whether or not kale is good for you or not? Like, I think we've gotten too far. We're really focusing on such minute details, and that's truly not the cause of people's either disease or unhealthy habits, is whether or not they're eating kale or fruit or any of these things for that matter. And it's sad because I see it so much in my clients when I first start working with them, this almost helplessness and this lack of trust in terms of their decisions around food. They no longer can trust how they behave around it. And so I think a lot of times they seek out help to have someone just tell them, We all just want someone to tell us what to do. And as much as that sounds good, and one would think I would be happy about that from like a business standpoint, it's something that I really try to disarm and tell people, my job is that you no longer need somebody who kind of has to tell you, and not even tell you, but help guide you in that space, because I think it's really sad, and I think women tend to be the ones who are at the heart of it most of the time. They're the ones who seem to be most invested in or have an interest when it comes to wellness. Not to say that men don't, but over a decade of doing this, I will definitely say the majority of my clients, 80% of them, are women.
Well, and that's a whole other interesting conversation, right? Even in my own household, my husband's really good at cooking. In fact, sometimes I think he's better than me. But somehow, and I kind of know for us when this happened, it was after having Everly, the part of me that wanted to make sure she was getting everything she needed, wanted to take over some of the control of that. And all of a sudden now we're 6 years out and we're trying to kind of figure out how to put some of that, balance that out a bit, because it feels like it's all on me to like figure out the meals and meal plan and grocery shop and make sure everyone in the family is like getting all of their nutrients. And then half the time or more than half the time on busy weeks, I just feel like a failure because it's like I can't, I'm trying to buy healthy things and fruits and vegetables. So it's like you kind of put in all this best effort and then time and stress and all of those things sometimes. And so that's definitely something that we're slowly trying to figure out a balance for, because it does seem to fall on us as women a lot to kind of have to navigate the nutrition for our whole family even. And
Yes.
sometimes I struggled even just for myself, especially as someone who kind of got into maybe health and acupuncture for some long-term kind of gut. I always say like my weakness is definitely my stomach and my gut. Definitely when I'm stressed or when things go awry, that's where things tend to fall out of balance. Yeah, trying to kind of navigate that for myself, but then also for all of them, and the pressure of also being a healthcare provider makes it seem like I should have it all figured out. And so that to me has been an interesting thing to navigate.
I also think an added layer to that is, kind of how you began in terms of like the noise around what you should or shouldn't do. If we followed the advice of everything, you can have this conflict then when you're trying to raise children of what ideas are we giving them in terms of what's healthy and what are healthy habits. If they see you perpetually not eating a meal or hearing comments around food, that can be really mixed messages too, right? And so that can be a lot on a mother as like a woman, if you're the one who is in charge of that. I think you're think of all of the different things in your mind when you're trying to make a meal for your family. Right. On top of making a meal that everybody enjoys. It's like, how is one supposed to succeed in that? Like a simple meal that you would probably make for your family, you could probably have, 4 different experts, I say that in quotations, telling you what's wrong or what's right about that. Right. So it can be really hard to navigate that for ourselves and also raise a family.
Yes, for sure. And like God love Pinterest, right? And all of the amazing people on Instagram and social with all their amazing recipes. I also have this problem where like I love food. Food and beverage are like I really enjoy it. But also my husband and I talk a lot about like not every meal has to be like a flavor explosion. It doesn't need 35 million ingredients and to be like this giant process.
Or like Instagram worthy presentation, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
I have this conversation a lot with clients because, there's usually like a meal that people get really spinny about. Everybody has like the meal, whatever it is. People just, we really love to complicate. And I don't say that in like a self-suffering way, but I think our society supports it, where we kind of get decision fatigue to sit down and plan a meal. I think, and I see it a lot in my practice where I'll have a client and everyone has like a meal that they really struggle with, and at least one, maybe it's everyone. And they kind of have this decision fatigue of what they should make, because as they're looking in their kitchen or their cupboard, they have all of the noise in the background of what that should be, comprised of. Like, oh, should I have, maybe I'll have hummus. Oh, wait, I shouldn't, because that's carbohydrates, or that's beans, or that's, what do I pair it with, or what does it mix with? Or it's this whole, they think, as you said before, it needs to be this beautiful presentation. And typically with people, if it's a meal that they're able to enjoy on their own, my biggest tip for them is literally pull out everything you think you want to eat. Like, bring it out. Don't, eat at the refrigerator, eat at the cupboard, which I'm saying that hypocritically, because the amount of times I've do that in a day is, as a mom, is hard to keep track of. But pull it out and at least look at it. Look at it and put it all on a plate, and just enjoy what you're feeling inspired to eat in that moment. And sometimes just a practice of that can help kind of reconnect a person to their trust of knowing what they want to eat and what sounds good to them, instead of what they should eat. And sometimes that's the first step before we even get to this, like, I hate to say, like, we get to the conversation of like what might be in best interest for your health needs.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if I give you a list of foods, that are good or bad, or eat this, don't eat that, people can do really well on that for a short amount of time. Or an elimination diet can do really well on that for a short period of time. And then life happens. You get sick, you're going to a birthday party, you have a work event, you have the holidays, you have, your sister comes into town, something.
Yeah.
And you can eat, the rigidity of something like that can really mess with somebody's ability to, again, kind of build that trust around how to truly nourish themselves.
Yeah, for sure. And I know with the conversation, we really wanted to sort of chat a lot about more of these kind of general, bigger picture kind of topics, right? And certainly if someone has really specific health goals, then that's definitely a bit of a different conversation, right? As when one is using sort of nutrition from a therapeutic approach to mitigate symptoms of a disease or something like that. But I think all of these principles, just for everyone, and just how we approach food and the way that we look at it and enjoy it, is so important.
Yeah, you're right. There definitely can be a place of, when somebody's in a position where it's dire, it's chronic, there's certain maybe diagnoses that go along with it. There can definitely be a place, and I think there always is a place for this mindset of food as medicine. Absolutely. And depending on kind of where somebody is in that journey and the severity of it, can change perhaps how, I guess the best way to put it is like how strong we start, how much steam we put in at the beginning, and how hyper focused we are on specifics. But even with somebody, like, let's take somebody who's had, like, say, chronic IBS, when I sit down with them and we're looking over food journals and we're just kind of talking about their day to day, one of the questions I ask right off the bat is, before I start giving you my thoughts, I'm really curious if you could pick or think of one aspect of your day to day, or your food intake, or your lifestyle, that you think is having a negative impact, or perhaps causing some of your discomfort. What do you think that is? And without fail, everybody has one. Everybody knows. They know. And not to say that that's the only one, or that's the main one, but it is an element of it. And so kind of unpacking this whole thing of people not feeling like they are in control, or feeling like they don't have that deep down intuition of knowing. And then, along with that is that acceptance. And I know you and I have talked about this before, where if let's say we're having a conversation about digestion or something, and this whole conversation of like, okay, well, on the weekend we like to go out and have a glass of wine or have wine with dinner, or enjoy time with friends. And especially as a mom, it can be hard to think like, okay, so now I have to give up this one thing that really fills my cup, no pun intended, but like really fills my cup as a person. And now, if I tell you that is one of the things that I think is impacting my health, we have this kind of complicated relationship with our ability to navigate what's in our best interest.
And we'll be right back. Uniquely adorned and lovingly tended, Mother Lion extends her arms towards those in need of rest, healing, connection, and celebration. Nestled in the heart of Milwaukee's Bayview neighborhood, Mother Lion is a single-level home that sleeps up to 10 people in 3 creatively curated bedrooms. With a fully functioning kitchen, cozy living and dining rooms, a bright Four Seasons room offering lounge sofas, fireplaces, a landscape backyard with hot tub, sauna, cold plunge, plenty of candles, and fresh spring water for your enjoyment. Find a temporary home in them for your vacation, celebration, class event, group retreat, or solo sleepover. Visit www.motherlionretreat.com and use code interwoven10 for 10% off your stay.
And I think commonly it's like we often want to find that one thing that's going to make it all better. And rarely in life is that the case. And I know we were chatting too, and just even just holistically, how many other things can impact, right? Like, I think when we were chatting, you were talking about like, have you been out in the sun? Have you, how much water are you drinking per day, right? It's like thinking too about all of these other aspects of life and well-being beyond just food too is important.
Well, I think we get lost in the details. We want somebody to tell us, be keto, be plant-based, intermittent fast, remove these foods, do a HIIT workout, do the sauna. We get so lost in these details. And one of my favorite things is when I have a client who maybe I haven't heard from in a while, and then they reach back out and they're like, "Oh, I've fallen off track. I don't know what to do." I hear them spinning, and it's all on details, right? It's all on the details. It's like, "Oh, and I, been drinking more wine, or, I haven't been doing this, or I haven't been doing a smoothie in the morning," and I just kind of listen and I let them. And then I just say, well, let's kind of get back to just basics. Because as an aside, like if you look and you lay out all of the diets out there, all of the advice, there are some common threads that they all agree upon. They all agree upon hydration, movement, getting rid of ultra processed foods, and limiting your intake of like junk food and fast food. Like that across the board. Like, show me a diet that tells you by not doing any of those things, you're going to thrive. So I ask people just that, like, okay, let's just go through basics. Are you drinking water? Almost every person says no. Like, no, like I just haven't, I blah, 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 blah. And so, we have all of our reasons, valid or not, but okay, what if we just focused on that? What if we literally just focused on that aspect of it and think about how that could have a positive impact? And so if we just look at like the real basic things that every person needs to just be healthy is, hydration, movement, sunshine. And if we don't even talk about food specifics, if there isn't even a conversation about what are you eating, what are you not eating, you can have this kind of aha moment of, okay, what if I just like took a deep breath and really just looked at my day to day and like my basic nourishments? Am I doing those? Am I doing these like kind of, I call them like really like foundational skills? Because just like when you would build a house or build a sandcastle or build a Lego thing, you need a solid foundation to build on. If we're just focusing on green smoothies and like lack of how many macros I'm getting, and we're not talking about, are you getting enough sleep, are you getting outside, we're not building a strong foundation to then build upon. We're
Yeah.
literally focusing on these details that I don't know if there's a part of us that kind of, it allows us to have a little bit of an escapism from those decisions of like, oh my gosh, should I put kale in my smoothie or spinach? When it's like, I don't know what it is, but I see it so frequently in my practice, so much. And and I don't think, obviously, like social media and everybody putting a what I ate today reel out there is helpful.
Right. One thing too, so I think all of the things that you mentioned of like the things that we all know are sort of good to omit or limit in our diet. And then the other piece that I feel like has come up a lot, Dr. Mo mentioned it in episode 2 after releasing the breast health guide, was a plant forward diet or plant based. I think sometimes there's some confusion on plant based, and Dr. Mo talked about it being more of a plant forward diet. And so certainly we know that fruits and vegetables are good for us, but I thought that could be an interesting discussion too, is just, and as I've told you, sometimes I struggle with building meals because I feel like there was a part of me for quite some time that was sort of more in the vein of like paleo and trying to eat, like a meat and veggies. And so now kind of trying to transition that thinking a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's the area that, I mean, even from childhood, we've kind of always been told fruits and vegetables are good for us.
Mhm.
And there is just there's so many benefits from them, that you can't find in other aspects of food. And so I think having a plant forward diet, I think, again, in this world of labels can get confusing, because then even someone hears that, they're like, wait, oh, I can't eat meat, or I can't eat eggs, or does that make me vegetarian? And plant forward really just being predominantly consuming plant, and the fiber in that alone, in terms of especially like women's health, is so incredibly important, right? And it's the only place you find fiber is in plant foods. And so I think we can get, as you mentioned, kind of spinny around it of, okay, how do I incorporate that more? What does that mean? What am I leaving out? And one thing I encourage my clients to do is, when you're thinking about a meal, what is your fiber source? Like, build your meal around, just, I try to say fiber just because I think, and we kind of talk more about it in terms of specifics, but plant, like whole plant foods, right? And I say that just because there's like that whole layer of like plant based eating that is not necessarily whole plant foods, and like packaged processed foods that with the labeling, but whole plant foods, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes, squash, winter squashes, that type of thing. If you can build your meal, if the first thing you can think of is what is that,
Mhm.
what is that going to be, versus thinking necessarily of like what's going to be our meat or what's going to be our protein, because I feel for most people those decisions aren't as hard. They might take a little
Mhm.
bit more preparation, especially if you're, let's say you're making like a meat dish. But if you can think, you can shift gears a little bit and focus first of like, what's going to be my fiber source at this meal,
Mhm.
and build it around that, right? So let's say, for an example, you're like, okay, it's autumn. I got this beautiful like butternut squash. Okay, I
Mhm.
want this to be like the focal point of the meal. What can I do with it?
Yeah.
And whether that's you're finding a recipe, or you're just like, oh, I'm going to cut it up and like roast it, and then, we'll have some like leftover chicken and, some another vegetable. That can sometimes be an easy way to kind of just shift your focus instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
Like, what's my meat source or what's my protein source? And another thing that I find can be helpful for people is, even if they choose a meal to be just plants, a meal a day. So let's say you're used to having like eggs for breakfast and, salmon for lunch and chicken for dinner. Can we make one meal just predominantly plants? And that can be, maybe that's like some sort of green smoothie. Maybe that's like a lentil dish in the evening. Maybe that's like a vegetable curry in lunchtime, or it's a big salad, and instead of putting chicken on it, you're putting tempeh or something on it. And playing around with that playing around with that concept sometimes can be helpful for people. But I think to get, again, everybody gets so kind of caught up on these all or nothing approaches to it is where I think people get lost.
Yeah.
Right. And then, it kind of throws us off the rails. And then all of a sudden we find ourselves like at the bottom of a Lay's potato chip bag, which is not, is not necessarily on target with any dietary advice for health.
Right. I love that tip because I think, as I've told you before, one of my struggles is I always feel like when I am meal planning or thinking about a meal that I always have this tendency to think of the protein first. So I love that idea of like thinking about the plant and the fiber source first. Because we know, like you said, for women, especially hormonally and with perimenopause, that like fiber, I mean, really for all of us, right, is so important to support our body and our body's ability to sort of rid itself of toxins and balance things out. And so I love that idea of focusing on that and building around that. And it can still have meat in it, but if you, like you said, just that simple mind shift, I think is really fantastic. The other thing that we've been doing, I feel like where we have been a little bit more successful with some plant-based meals is that we've been having fun with mason jar salads. It's been sort of a fun way to sort of like pile in various vegetables and get creative with it and not always have, sometimes we add meat. But I love those ways to, again, just kind of change the way we think about food a little bit, to make it not so cumbersome.
And I think even as simple as, I mean, maybe you have this, but I hear all the time where someone be like, I go grocery shopping, I buy all the vegetables, I buy all the fruit, and then it ends up spoiling in the back of my fridge because there's like this, we have our best intentions of using it. But if you have this kind of like, okay, what do if you just focus on that, like, okay, what are the vegetables I have in my refrigerator first? Like, how can I use these? And what's the meal I can use these with? All of a sudden, you're not wasting as much of that. Your meals are being comprised more of that instead of it being kind of like an afterthought of like, oh, we're having grilled chicken and I guess we'll have some, frozen spinach or, something that might not be incredibly palatable or attractive to everybody, but it allows you to, I think, bring a little bit more obviously plant-based food on your plate, but also have kind of this reconnection of understanding that those foods hold so much potential in terms of like health on top of the fiber. But they also are foods that, let's say you decide to follow a certain dietary pattern, if you choose first the fiber, you can build it upon any other dietary thing you're following. So let's say you're doing something that works for you and you decide you want to be paleo or you want to be vegan or you want to be keto, whatever it is, you still can comprise your meal around that, but you just ensure that you are getting it. Because what I see time and time again with people who follow a diet trend is the fiber is always compromised. Because whenever you're following something that omits a food group, I find that we overcompensate on the foods that we are allowed to eat in a way, right? So
Mhm. Totally.
if we're doing keto and we can't have pizza, we're now going to make a crust out of cheese and have sauce and cheese and meat on it. And again, like, okay, well, where's the fiber?
There's the
Or
fiber.
we're a vegan and we can't have meat. Now we're eating some sort of like Franken, faux chicken nuggets that might be made out of plant-ish stuff, but typically a lot of processed fake food. And so again, we're missing out on the key component that every single diet wants you to focus on
Yeah.
is fiber and that plant forward getting your nutrients from plants, and that can be a variety of any combination of starchy, non-starchy fruits, vegetables, but really just letting that be kind of where your mind goes to first.
That is so great. I love yeah, I feel like even for me in this conversation, I'm excited because I feel like I have had a mind shift or mindset shift around food and structuring meals. And I'm excited about that. So yay. Thank you, Maria. It's been so lovely to chat. And every time we talk about it, it's fun to chat and pick your brain. And if you are willing to answer our thread question of the season, as you age, is there a part of you or your body that you appreciate more?
Yeah, I would say kind of actually in a sense tying back to our conversation is recognizing the simple things in my life that I really look forward to and finding a way of making those things really enjoyable. And I think of my example of like morning coffee. Like I really enjoy having coffee in the morning, and I could go and think of all the reasons I shouldn't be doing it and all the good, bad, or indifferent and let my mind spin. I also know that if it is something that I almost have a ritual around and really drink it out of a cup that I like and really make it the way that I enjoy it, or go somewhere and get it in the way that I really want it, and like owning the fact that I really love that, and not or a glass of wine or these. I think sometimes as we age I feel, or maybe it's motherhood and maybe it's both, is having just more connection to the decisions around pleasure and things that kind of allow you these really simple things, and having just like, I don't want to say like at peace with it, but not trying to, like, I'm not trying to biohack my life.
Yeah.
At one point of like in my youth, maybe I would like, I'd want to do everything right for the, you know, make sure my body's like, detoxing, or it's not, my adrenals or whatever it is, right? You want to do everything perfect. And there's almost a surrender of understanding that your time in life, there is an endpoint. And if your entire focus is around perfecting how you nourish yourself, you might really miss out on the joy of nourishment, or joy as a nourishment, or pleasure as nourishment. So yeah, I think just really connecting more with that, I have found, has been kind of fun.
I love that. Yay. And what a great way to end our chat. I am grateful to be aging with you, my friends. And I look forward to more chats in the future. And we are so grateful to have you on our advisory board. And while I miss you here in Milwaukee, I'm excited to get out to Denver to see you and your beautiful
Yeah.
family.
Yeah, I love what you guys are doing with Interwoven. I mean, the more I connect with even just being out here with other mothers, it's just a space that I think is so greatly needed, of just this space that really hears the different stages of maturing women or motherhood, or the kind of the collaboration or collection of all of it, because it hasn't been, I think, the sexy conversation to have in some ways, but there is this incredible like attractive wisdom to this stage of life, and I love that you guys are having those conversations.
Thank you, friend. Maria, thank you so much for chatting. I can't wait to see you soon.
Oh, me too, Rebecca. Thanks so much for having me.
We'll talk soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us today. We invite you to give us a star review and to hit subscribe for a new empowering conversation each week. Visit our website where you'll find our newsletter, event dates, and other amazing resources. Visit interwoven.com, that's interwovxn.com, to sign up today. This show's copyright is fall of 2023. Our Interwoven producers are Teresa Kopak, Rebecca Jankowski, and Jen Gilmore. All original music was created and performed by Gina Barrington.